Hello, my friend. Brian King here. I had a few interesting conversations yesterday based on the subject of manners. And because of the consistency, I knew that I had to bring this to you as well and get your insight on it. The first conversation took place when I was doing a training for a group of educators. And one of the things that came up repeatedly in many cases was the extreme selfishness of some of these kids. Now, these kids do have diagnoses along the autism spectrum and ADHD. So very stereotypically, these kids are often thought of to be selfish first. That's not always the case, we know. Some of them are very generous, very conscientious. But for one young man in particular, it seemed that while at home, this child was indulged. He was allowed to spend any and all time he wanted to on his electronic device, which of course, now in this day and age, is not unique. But when I asked, why is he allowed to do this? Why isn't he being given any kind of balance? And the response was, well, he can be a little hard to deal with. That was interesting because the child is running the household and determining the rules because the child is hard to deal with. My question was, how hard is this child going to be to deal with when he's 25 years old, has no job, no friends, because his only skill set is how to use that device better? And I don't know if the parents have thought about that, because my guess is they are quite possibly overstressed and are just interested in putting out the fire of the moment and are not looking long-term enough. But we'll get into that in a little bit. The other conversation that I had was with a medical professional that was checking me in for a test that I needed to get done. And she was looking at my records and just out of curiosity, making conversation, asked me what kind of work I did. And I explained about my work with the spectrum and ADHD, and more specifically in the area of supporting parents and helping their kids become more compassionate. And the change on her face was dramatic. She thanked me for doing that work and gave me this reason why. She said she had conversations with a couple millennials recently, and they declared to her that they and their friends have decided to do away with please and thank you and basic manners like opening doors, and this was the justification. They believe that being polite, being kind is just one of many ways to do things and is therefore not the preferred way to do things. So why should they have to? To each their own. And that was a bit of a scary proposition because anybody who is watching the tide turn in society today realizes that this country is falling apart. And it is largely because of this kind of selfishness that people don't care about their neighbor. It's about them. Where are my faster downloads? Why can't I get my coffee quicker? It's all about me. It's all about my selfie. It's all about how many followers I've got. And I'm not just blaming social media because that's an influential part, but it also begins with your personal standards. What have you decided to stand for? What do the people around you encourage? What do they stand for? So this is also a misstep on the individual level, deciding that you don't want to stand up for anything. You just want to take the path of least resistance. We don't want to offend anyone, so we won't stand up for anything. So one of the reasons I heard, as I just mentioned, was the millennials thinking that, and not all millennials, of course, I'm not indicting an entire generation here, but the millennials that were quoted in this woman's story to me seem to believe that individual preference is far superior than community health. In other words, why should I care about my neighbors? Why should I care about the larger town? What's in it for me? I've even seen this become fragmented in individual families, where you have one or more family members that's extremely self-centered and doesn't care what they live with because it's all about them. So this is a problem that goes way deeper than millennials. And in the first example I gave, there are some cases where the parents actually seem afraid of their own child. Well, what if my child gets mad at me? Well, what if he throws a tantrum? What if he won't do what I say? What if we're late? Any variety of reasons as to why it is not okay to stand up to your child. Now, I'll tell you, growing up, my folks had no problem standing up to me and my siblings. Now, I'm not saying that we were beaten into submission, the old corporal punishment, spare the rod, spoil the child. You can stand your ground simply because of the strength of your, what's the word I'm looking for here? The strength of your convictions. That you believe so strongly in the importance of manners and kindness that you simply won't budge until that's what you get. And this is not an unreasonable expectation. It's not like you're trying to get your kid to agree to some hard labor. This is basic kindness towards your fellow human being. Another reason I see that might be a reason for this lapse in manners, that it's not getting the same airtime it used to, is because you're seeing the adults in this world having to take on more and more. Parents have 2 jobs. There's this, I don't even know when this started, where kids are overscheduled, soccer 7 days a week, doing this club and that curricular activities, and the parents have to be the cab drivers. They don't get any time for themselves because it's all about the kids. And by the end of the night, their will is shot. They don't have a whole lot left to stand behind, so they're more likely to give in to their kids to just get a little peace and quiet. And the teachers, it's very difficult for them to get the kids to be nice to each other because they're so busy trying to keep up on this ridiculous amount of paperwork they're given, seems more every single year, because they have to teach to the test and make sure the scores are right instead of actually educating the children. So we can't look to them to do their job, get their needs met, and educate the kids when more of the wrong stuff is getting piled down their lap at the expense of being able to help forge the character of these kids. So the teachers and the parents are in a very similar boat. All the wrong, not as helpful stuff is being emphasized in trying to move, and the expenses are basic decency as human beings. Too much selfishness. Too much about who got the best score, whether it's a video game or a test. Who got to be first in line? Who's got the most followers? All that stuff. I'm sure to a degree those things have their place, but if you got the most followers, can it be because you are making a tremendous contribution and not simply because you're the best at getting attention for yourself? This world has too many Kardashians. We need people that are fundamentally decent, kind human beings that realize that we're in this together. And that what holds us together is our ability to feel supported and loved and safe with one another. That begins with please and thank you. That begins with seeing another human being, opening a door and saying, you matter. I took the time to notice you. This I know is just the beginning of a larger conversation. So please, let's keep having. I want to hear your thoughts on this too. Share it with some other folks that you would like to hear chime in on this. And if you want to go deeper with the community that I've set up on Facebook, then you can go to thecompassionatedad.com and hook up with the community there. And together, maybe we can bring some of these manners back because, man, do we need them. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your time. Have a great day.